Welcome to Regenesys Corporate Education's Senior Leaders Webinar, the 2026 Capability Playbook, Behavioral plus Digital Skills Every Organization Must Build. We are privileged to be joined by an esteemed panel of industry leaders. Let us now begin this insightful conversation on shaping leadership for 2026 and beyond.
So, if I were to answer that question, I would say that today organizations are feeling challenged by the complexity of the situation that we face, the high level of competitiveness, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry. At the same time, lack of leadership abilities, um, that is just one aspect of it. The second is frequent changes in leadership that leads to limitations in strategic planning. These are some of the challenges we are facing, and based on that, organizations are forced to think afresh in terms of how do we handle such challenges. If you see, few years back, things were a lot simpler, where you could have long-term strategies in place, and accordingly, you could work even at your own pace, and you could manage things. Even if at best, what you could face was a slight delay in getting things done. But the in this VUCA world, before you actually are able to implement a strategy, this ground scenario changes, and that has led to a serious thinking where capability building requires a level of speed, and the organization is not ready for it. That's the key challenge we are facing, and accordingly, we are adjusting based on developing strategies accordingly. So yes, it is a challenge, and let me be frank in admitting that we don't have a very clear, defined strategy to handle this situation. Anything, Ritesh, you'd like to add to it?
Yeah, sure. So, see, capability building is always something which is, amongst one of the top few priorities of HR in any organization. However, the challenge is when we think of capability building, we mostly think of functional capabilities, right? Okay, now we all understand that senior leadership requires less of functional capabilities and more of behavioral capabilities. And this is where, like Jayant said, that most of the organizations, they are not thinking in these lines. I personally and strongly believe that in today's era, in the age of artificial intelligence, where the machines are getting more intelligent, it's high time that human beings start thinking about their own intelligence, because end of the day, humans are the ones who are going to use all the artificial intelligence, right? So this is one specific area where I feel that companies need to think about and start helping leaders who are strong in human skills.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jayant and Ritesh. Santosh, what are your perspectives on this?
Yeah, sure, Avni. So I see two important changes today, how we think about leadership. Now, one is earlier leadership was viewed as something that only certain roles or only the high posts would require. But today we are looking at leadership as something that can be scalable. We are starting to build these leadership skills right from the individual contributor level. And of course, as they go up in the hierarchy, we're also going towards coaching. One-on-one coaching, group coaching is what we are looking at. That is number one. And number two, this is one of the biggest changes that I have been seeing, because normally when we train managers or senior managers and above, right? That's where we are teaching them more in terms of scenario-based, case-based. The reason being, we are not looking at leadership capabilities having knowledge. Now, if I speak about, say, negotiation, most of us will think like, okay, I know how to negotiate. But if I am put into that spot, if I have to actually negotiate, how well am I doing? Now, that is one of the most important questions that we as HR and L&D and also as leaders or as managers, people have to ask themselves. So we are going from just having a skill to applying that under pressure. So that's where these scenarios, simulations, experiential learning programs are becoming more and more, according to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Santosh, for that perspective. And yes, like Jayant said, that the core issue is that the leadership instability is damaging strategy because strategic planning gets repeatedly derailed, and organizations are being forced to think afresh again and again because of the frequent changes in leadership that disrupt the continuity. And also looking at what Ritesh has mentioned, that in the age of AI, functional expertise can be augmented or automated because organizations tend to focus only on functional or technical capability, whereas our leaders require more behavioral capability. Yes, absolutely. And Santosh, as you very rightly mentioned, that leadership is scalable, and we can definitely look at how can we or how organizations can focus on building leadership from scratch, not assuming that it will emerge organically. So, that also brings me to another interesting question that I have for all of you, which is that, from your experience, what kind of capabilities do you think that worked very well in the past are no longer sufficient and are no longer efficient today? So if any one of you could help us understand this.
Okay, can I answer?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so what I see is because of the increased complexity of the individual role itself, complexity has increased at all levels, whether it is an individual role complexity. Simpler jobs are getting eliminated. What you're left with are people doing more complex, playing more complex roles, and that causes a situation which was not present earlier, wherein you could manage things at an individual capacity, be it an individual role holder or a leader. He or she could manage things with his own capability as a leader, or same applies to an individual contributor also. But in today's scenario, thanks to the technology and thanks to the complex of how technology makes us work, it is the collaboration and teamwork which is taken center stage. So anywhere we find people working in silos is directly hampering organization performance. We see it, we know it, but the challenge is when you work on capability building at an individual level, it's far more easier. You could identify and you can work on it. But when you start building capabilities at a team level, that is where the complexity arises, because it is the interplay of the individual attitudes and capabilities along with the other person's attitudes and capabilities which makes a big difference. So basically the whole approach we are having to rethink and realign our approach to the work itself, because wherever we try to build capabilities, we find it really doesn't give us so much of a result. The primary reason being results can be arrived only through team collaboration and team decisions, and the cultures don't promote that. The existing cultures in, at least I can say, for pharmaceutical industry, the existing system doesn't promote that kind of a collaborative work. And in pharma, if I were to say, the organizations are getting increasingly complex. This in terms of size and the operational complexity. That's the key thing. So if you ask, like, what worked well earlier, individual capacities, individual capacity of a leader, and that's not working anymore. And what needs to be done in terms of building, it is the collaborative approach.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jayant. I think a very interesting perspective that you've shared from a culture standpoint. So, Santosh, would you want to, pitch in for
Sure,
this?
sure, Avni. Um, for me, right, one of the biggest things is before 10 years or before 15 years, one would get promoted in the same vertical. Say someone starting in finance, they would get promoted, and your expected path is being a CFO. Or someone in marketing, you will become a CMO. But today, it's not sufficient or enough to have one domain or one functional expertise. It's because of two reasons. One, the ever-changing VUCA world that we are living, number one. And number two is because of the generation, the Gen Z. People want to try out different things. And even that kind of brings a new learning framework, according to me. Like we used to say the T framework earlier, where you have an in-depth knowledge in one topic and you know very briefly about other subjects. But today we say T is being replaced by V today, because you need to have increasingly more knowledge in one aspect, and of course, equally, or if not more or less same knowledge in three, four other adjacent areas as well. So that is one big change that I see today. And the other thing that I also look at is how are we equipping leaders, and especially in this age of AI, to take the right judgment? It's because we can create a process, but at the end of the day, are we going and checking whether the process that we are following is always right or not? If I have to give you a very simple example, say someone goes through a performance review, they score 1 on 5, 1 being the least and 5 being the highest. Are we simply going and putting that person on PIP? Or are we asking this one question? Are we interacting with this person and asking, hey, what made you score so less? Or what made you, not perform so well? And sometimes the answer would be, there was a demise in my family, so I could not focus on my work in this quarter or in the last 6 months. And that's when the reality stucks in. And that's where the judgment, the humanness of the leader comes into place. So I think these are the two big changes. One, we are no more thinking about being an expert in one area. And number two, are we coupling our judgment with the processes that we have? I think these are the two big things I see that worked earlier, but they won't work today.
Right, absolutely. I think Santosh, you really hit the nail on
Yeah.
the target. And yes, what you're saying is very relevant and completely agreeable. Let's get deeper into this discussion. But before that, Ritesh, would you like to share your thoughts here?
Okay, I understand both Jayant and Santosh, they shared good thoughts. My thought on this, one of the biggest challenge when organizations think of capability building is they first have to understand whether they are building managers or they are building leaders, because building manager is different, building leader is different, right? Now, having said this, it is, both manager and leader words are interchangeably used and very few people understand. See, managership is all about processes and tasks, right? And that is where you have to make sure that your team whom you are leading, they are doing their processes and tasks correctly. However, leadership is something which you do with people, right? It is not related with processes and tasks, right? Where you influence, you try to bring about some change, you help your team go extra mile and do something which they never thought of doing. Now, so this is where if there is a clarity, because organization need effective managers and organization need effective leaders both. However, it is not necessary that all effective managers will be effective leaders as well. And this is where if the organizations understand what is the methodology, what is the process they need to follow while building effective managers and while building effective leaders, and if they can categorize both of them, I think it will be simple even for managers who like to transit into leadership. It is going to help them as well. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Ritesh, Santosh, and Jayant. And since we've been talking about the significant shift in how do you think we are as organizations thinking about leadership, capability, what worked well, what's not working anymore or any longer, especially in this age of AI. Where do you see organizations primarily struggle the most when it comes to balancing behavioral capability with digital readiness in this AI world?
Yeah, if I were to answer that question, I would say it is basically preparing the leaders and the workforce to build capabilities to handle digital tools. Basically, we have a scenario where the situation is I don't know that I don't know. The level of awareness is such that when you look at capabilities of the digital tools in this era, there are immense capabilities, but people are not even aware that these capabilities exist and can be utilized. So we have to start at awareness level. And the other challenge is people who have to initiate such capability building themselves are not aware. That's where the challenge starts. And I think everybody is struggling with this, and everybody is trying to catch up as fast as possible. This obviously is going to take time. And the other aspect of it is it was expected that with the help of the digital tools available and the AI and the information available, people by themselves would develop capabilities. But it didn't happen. And we find at an individual level, if you look at people, whether it is in any function, uh, uh, they stand where they were. Maybe some general knowledge has increased, but when it comes to a focused development in their work area, no digital tool has actually contributed there. So again, the effort is left for the L&D and the HR to work on it, but nobody knows where to start from. That
Absolutely,
would happen.
absolutely. I think we are, sorry, you were saying something.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you. I think you are absolutely right because we're still looking for that starting point. Where do we, take the first step and how do we take that first step? Very interesting perspective, Jayan. Thank you. Ritesh, what about your thought? What about you? What do you think?
Uh, I think, see, all these platforms, I mean, in today's age, digital platform, they are meant to help managers or human beings be more efficient and effective. All right. So, suppose there is a task which I used to take 1 hour to analyze a data. Now I have a platform available which can do it in few seconds or minutes. Right. So this is about efficiency and effectiveness. However, the biggest challenge is because so many platforms available, so many digital platforms with the advent of AI, so many platforms available. Most of the, maybe L&D leaders or organizations, they are getting confused what to use, what not to use. And
Exactly.
this is where I always suggest the simple rule to follow is first you decide what is the objective, what is the outcome you are looking at, and then you work backwards, right? And then you try find out which is the digital platform which is going to help me get this outcome which we are looking at. If we follow this process, I'm sure it gives a lot of clarity. Otherwise, it is like you go to a mall and you have everything available and you don't know what do you want to buy because you hear from people, you listen to webinars like this, you have a lot of platforms, medium available which promote all these kind of digital platforms. So a lot of clarity is what according to me is required, and it is only when I know that what I want to achieve as an objective, I will be able to choose between whatever is offered to me, and then decide, okay, how it is going to benefit me and bring about efficiency and effectiveness. So these are my thoughts.
Thank you, Ritesh. Santosh, over to you.
Sure. So I'd like to say, I'd like to continue from where Ritesh has started, because I think we need to, I mean, we have a lot of information overload today, and in the same way, the tool overload, like which tool should I be using? I think that's one big question that we all have. And for this, right, I'd say whenever we are taking a tool or an AI tool or anything into our organization, or any digital tool for that instance, because this discussion is all about digital, right? And that also includes AI, of course. I think we should treat that like hiring a consultant. And the discretion of whether they should hire this consultant should be given to the business head, the functional head. And let them use it, let them use their own budget, let them take that call, but we need to put some legal, the technical, the finance, the cyber security, the most important part, and all these things. Have those approval flows and then let the functional leaders take that call. I think that helps us kind of probably overcome this issue of digital tool overload. And if you ask me, according to me, the biggest problem is L&D background, I can always say that the biggest challenge while balancing digital and behavioral skills is treating them separately. If I have to take an example of cybersecurity, right? Most of us think that cybersecurity issues are rocket science, but there is a study which says that 97% of cybersecurity issues are because of human errors. Now, all these again translate into clicking on a link, I mean, not being very attentive, not having this attention to detail, not reading the instructions, or not understanding what you're getting into. All these behavioral skills that impact. So I feel organizations should most importantly start thinking about behavioral and digital skills as one and the same. They go hand in hand. I mean, if I have to take one more example, right? Think about prompt engineering. We have been asking questions for years now, but there is only a way of prompting, like you define the role, you tell the tool what you require and all these things. Now, you don't have to look it like a rocket science, and that will happen only when you couple technical or the digital skills with behavioral skills. I think if we start doing that right, increasingly, it will become way easier. It becomes very simple. Yeah, that's my take.
Absolutely. Thank you, Santosh. Thanks, everyone. And since, we've heard this, even on this webinar, the VUCA world and how it has changed perspectives, we are also looking at a NAVI world, which is NAVI, the non-linear, accelerated, volatile, and interconnected environment. Because in such a NAVI environment, as very rightly put across by all of you, organizations struggle because digital readiness is treated as a technology problem. Just like very rightly, you put, Santosh, that cybersecurity, 97% of cybersecurity cases are because of human error. So digital readiness is treated as a technology challenge, while behavioral capability is treated as a nice to have. And this creates leaders who can deploy tools, but they might lack judgment, they might lack empathy, they might lack decision making under pressure. And this real imbalance at times surfaces at senior levels, where leaders are expected to completely navigate complexity, ambiguity, but they are equipped mainly with functional skills, digital skills, not the human capabilities which are required to lead people, to make those trade-offs, and of course, even course correct in the constant changing environment that we are in. So yes, that absolutely is very well thought out there. And with this, I'd like to move on to questions to, our specific industry panelists. So Ritesh, if we could, start with you. So Ritesh comes from Alembic Pharmaceuticals. So coming to you first, Ritesh, in a highly regulated sector like pharma, how are you balancing compliance-driven capability building with the need for being agile and future-ready?
Yep. So you have a valid point when you refer to pharma industry highly regulated, SOP driven, compliance driven, right? Now, compliance mostly applies to our manufacturing facilities, wherein each and every employee is supposed to follow the SOPs, right? Now, if I have to train my plant people, then there are platforms which we use. Like I cannot give an open platform where my employees are using at their convenience at home or anywhere. So what we do is we create kiosks at the plant only, and then we allow them to learn, because as you said, these are highly regulated SOPs, compliance training, and these are highly confidential in nature as well, right? However, we do not face the similar kind of challenges when we deal with sales marketing team. Okay, right? Now, some of the compliance modules, like we talk about in pharma, I don't know if you know, there is a terminology called UCPMP, Uniform Civil Code for Pharma Marketing and Production, kind of. So this is one compliance module, but this we can train people any which way, right? So this is not something which is unique to Alembic. This is not something which is unique to any particular organization. This is followed by all pharma organizations, right? So there are certain modules which we can run on open LMS platform, and employees can access and they can complete all these modules. However, like I said, if we refer to R&D, if we refer to plants, manufacturing facilities, so you have SOPs and modules which are highly confidential in nature, and we use some platforms like restricted LMS platforms we call, which is not like general LMS platforms available, and employees can learn at the workplace itself. I mean, they cannot learn at their homes or anywhere else. So this is something which is unique and is different between the two group of audiences which we take care.
So thanks, Ritesh. Taking taking this ahead, what do you think are the primary behavioral capability gaps and behavioral performance gaps that you see very often among, let's say, the first level leaders and the mid-level leaders today?
I mean, if you ask me, the most common problem, according to me, is lack of emotional intelligence, right? I mean, if people are emotionally intelligent, they know how to deal with human beings, right? Now, at times, what Jayant spoke, because there is high level of competitiveness, right? There is competition amongst the employees also. Okay, and this is where we forget that we are dealing with human beings. As a human being, I'm only concerned about my thoughts and my feelings. I'm not aware, I'm not concerned, I'm not bothered about how other person is thinking and how other person is feeling, right? And this is where, like, one word which you used, empathy, in today's world is such a powerful word, right? Okay, and we all are talking about that we all need to practice empathy across. So I strongly believe and feel that if many of us can become emotionally intelligent, according to me, half of the problem is going to get solved, right? Then there are certain skill set, and the next one, according to me, is communication skill. I mean, you do a survey, go ask 100 people, 99 will tell you that I'm good in communication skill, which is absolutely opposite of what they are saying. Most of us human beings, we do not communicate completely, concisely, and precisely. Okay, we have a nature because as an individual, when I communicate with others, I have my own thoughts in my mind. I know what I'm thinking about, but the same thought has to be conveyed to others so nicely, wherein the other person understands and takes necessary action. I mean, there's a survey recently which was published. We say that 70% of the tasks does not done the way it is expected to be done, and the reason is a gap in communication skills. So, according to me, these are two skill sets which comes to my mind. If we start working on this, is going to help all of us, and lot of day to day the conflicts which we talk about, okay, can be taken care of. Now, as we are talking about this, many companies, they conduct a lot of sessions on conflict management because they understand and know that conflicts are there, and we have to train our managers, employees, how to deal with conflict. However, the first step is help them understand how they can be emotionally intelligent, because half of the conflict will not happen if human beings are emotionally intelligent. If they start practicing empathy, I mean, many conflicts already will be gone, right? So these are some thoughts, according to me, which organizations need to take care. And I'm talking about this because, I mean, I have done a research on emotional intelligence. This is my research topic as well. And I have done this on sales managers, pharma sales managers in India, right? And I was so surprised when I got the data to understand how different regions and different zones in India, they vary in terms of emotional intelligence. I mean, an individual based out at Chennai thinks of emotional intelligence as something else, and somebody who is based out at Guwahati thinks differently, somebody in Delhi thinks differently. Right? So they perceive and they practice this differently, right? Even for that matter, I conduct sessions on empathy because empathy is one of the pillar of emotional intelligence. You go ask 100 people what is empathy, and 99 will say empathy is putting ourselves in other shoes. Okay, and out of 99%, out of those 99 who say this answer, they actually fail to elaborate on this, what they mean exactly. Right? So these are certain areas. If we can educate managers, employees, I'm sure that a lot of things will be taken care automatically. Yeah.
Absolutely, Ritesh. Thank you so much. I think what you what you mentioned has put the perspective in its right spot, because empathy and emotional intelligence are the missing behavioral muscle set. And as they say, emotional intelligence and empathy start with E, and E basically is emotional self-awareness. And if we see leaders and organizations on the whole, they struggle to recognize their own triggers, they struggle to recognize their own stress responses, and even blind spots for that matter, before reacting or before getting into a conversation. And of course, that is where I think emotional intelligence and empathy take a toll. Thank you so much, Ritesh. I think it has been great to hear from you. I do definitely have another thing that question that I'd like to ask you. How do you think the learning and development teams in very traditional setups make learning more contemporary, more business relevant, more outcome driven?
In contemporary setup, see, go ask any person, and training is knowledge. Yeah. Okay. Why training? Because I have to provide some knowledge and some basic minimum skill set, which is going to help the employee to carry out their day-to-day work efficiently, effectively, whatever you say, right? So training is transfer of knowledge. You go ask 100 people, and this is what the answer you will get 99% of the time. However, training is also helping people that how knowledge is going to make them effective and benefit them in their day-to-day work. Otherwise, training is knowledge. Okay, कुछ ज्ञान दिया जाएगा. I will spend some time, come back, irrespective of the fact whether I apply, I do not apply. Tick mark हो जाएगा. My data will say that I have attended a training program, right? And this is how it is driven, conventionally. However, of late, I'm so happy to say that most of the organizations, and not just pharma, but many other organizations, they've started believing that training is more about helping people how they can carry out their day-to-day work effectively rather than knowledge. And so in today's world, the training sessions are less of PPT and lecture and more of simulations and activities, right? Where you create scenarios, where you create simulations, where you create a lot of case studies and help learners to think that if you are in this particular situation, how are you going to solve this? And so that is the big shift which I have seen happening across the industry, and most of the L&D professionals today, they use these kind of tools which are more effective, which give experiences to their learners, where the learners, they start relating with their professional life. Oh, few months ago, I also faced a similar kind of situation. So in future, if I am into this kind of situation, this is what I need to do differently, right? So in contemporary world, the L&D is more about giving experiences, helping the learners go through those kind of simulations, situations, and helping them start thinking, right? And most of the time, believe you me, I mean, you give them situation, allow them to think, and they will come up with the solutions. Okay, I think this is what we need to do in these kind of situations. So this is something which is very important, and many, digital platforms also nowadays, they have these kind of simulations and activities, and like gaming platforms where they help the learner to experience all this and then learn on their own rather than somebody providing knowledge only.
Right. Thank you, Ritesh. I'd invite Jayant and Santosh also to, share their thoughts before, I move to the next section here. Jayant and Santosh, if you have any thoughts on how we are looking at, the traditional L&D teams in traditional conventional industries making learning more business relevant.
I think I completely agree with what Ritesh is saying, because being from pharma, one thing good about pharma L&D activities or training is that almost all of it is driven by internal people, and most of them have sales experience, or if it is manufacturing, then they have manufacturing experience. So relevance is by default built into pharma trainings or pharma L&D initiatives. It's always there. And what Ritesh, the second point also said is very true, that of late the focus has been moving from knowledge download to experiential learning, and that has definitely helped. I think across, as far as I have seen, pharma industry, this change has taken place, and that's how we are building more relevant capability building.
I'd also like to add that, Jayant and Ritesh, we are also looking more, the ownership or the onus of learning shifting to the leadership along with the L&D teams. I think that has also become, that has increasingly become important, because with these changing things, right? Things which are changing constantly, looping in the leadership and then asking them, hey, what is that you want? And telling them, hey, these are the 4-5 things. What is that you want to take from that? I think that's also very important.
Correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. On that note, Jayant, I'd like to ask that, when you talk about people challenges, leadership challenges that tend to surface, right? Especially during periods where we are trying to scale and transform. What are, let's say the top three challenges that you have come across?
As I already shared, if I am not much aware of the kind of consistency you get in other industries, but I can definitely say for pharma industry, um, one of the major challenges is a shift from a long-term perspective to a short-term gain, primarily because the leadership itself is not consistent in most companies. Uh, when you have a leadership change at a higher level, the highest level, I would say, obviously the focus of the organization shifts from a long-term strategy to survival at the short-term level, and that causes a lack of long-term vision. That is the number one challenge. Then we have, of course, once the topmost leadership is engaged in survival and making their existence felt, down the line you have issues percolating, leading to silo working where everybody is concerned with their own functions. Nobody thinks strategic, larger picture perspective. And second is basically that sense of urgency we have in pharma. I think it would be amongst the highest if you look at functional managers or operatives. Sense of urgency is very high. That leads to cutting corners, shortcuts, and compromises. That's the second challenge. And it's a very high stress environment. In whether you look at pharma manufacturing or whether you look at pharma sales and marketing, you have high stress situation. These are the primary challenges we face. So from L&D perspective, we are faced with a dilemma of whether to handle long-term capability building or handle the immediate no situation that arises out of these nuances.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Jan. That actually brings me to another question that, as L&D leaders, as HR leaders, how can these leaders ensure that capability building initiatives remain very practical, where everything can be applied to real workplace situations? How can they ensure this capability building?
What we have started now, my company, Zuventus Healthcare, is part of a larger group called as MCure. So in MCure Group, what we have started is as an initiative, value-based competency building. So we have these five values called as entrepreneur mindset, quality, innovation, teamwork, and integrity. So the whole capability building is being built around these values. So the competency framework is built around the values, the behavior anchors are built around these values, and all the capability building is happening around these values only. So that's step number one. That way, we are ensuring that there is a consistency in whatever capability building we do. Then we are, of course, making it relevant by ensuring, and that is easy in pharma industry, as I said, because most of the people working in L&D or training for that matter are people from the operational background. It will be a salesperson, person with sales experience or manufacturing experience. So it's easier for them to build relevance in whatever we are talking from capability building to their day-to-day functioning. So that's how we manage currently. And of course, like Santosh also said, in all companies where the L&D is competent, they ensure that the functional managers are involved in the capability building. So it is, they are part of the planning process. That's one more thing we do practice. That's one way of getting things done. And of course, having matrices to measure. This I don't know how many companies are practicing, but at least I'm ensuring that in our practices we have matrices to measure the outcome So once we have the strategy in place and the operational things happening, the matrices help us to ensure that whatever we are delivering, it is aligned to what we had planned, and then continuously innovating, because it never works best first time. So continuously innovating and improvising is what we keep doing. So that's how we ensure that there is alignment, and at the same time, finally, we try and keep it simple, because too complex strategies ultimately, when it comes to implementation, do not work. So we try and keep it simple for us.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Jayant. And with that, I'd like to very quickly move to Santosh, and we're also looking at the time here. Santosh, I know you have partly already spoken about this, but I would like to specifically understand that how do you think leaders build confidence in navigating digital change without actually requiring the technical expertise, deep technical expertise?
Okay. I think they should typically ask 3 questions: why, what, and how. And when we do that, like say, for example, take agentic AI. Now, as a leader, you don't have to go and make your hands dirty about what agentic AI is all about, what programming languages are required. But you should essentially know why is agentic AI, what it is, and how do we execute it. I think these are the 3 things that leaders should look at. So I think when we do it, that's when we will have the confidence, and we should be able to make that right decision with the right tool. Like, hey, someone comes, say for example, data analytics. I need to get my marketing analytics or insights out. How do I do that? Which tool should I be using? Should I be using Power BI, ClickSense, whatnot? I mean, they should know why something is needed, what and how. That's it. I think when they're equipped with these skills, I think they'll be great.
Yes, thank you. Very precisely and aptly, shared with us, Santosh. So, Santosh, from an IT and digital services perspective, what is digital readiness? What does it really truly mean for leaders who are non-technical?
Okay. Again, I would say digital readiness, okay, for leaders, right? Again, as I said, right? The ability to make decisions around that. The ability to make decisions around putting things together. I think that's it. I mean, as I said, my answer is going to be more or less same, but it's broadly how, what, and why. Again, I'd like to say that.
Sure. Thank you again for that, Santosh. So, again, taking from what you just mentioned, where do you think, in which arena do organizations today struggle with, when they are translating digital strategy into leadership capability?
I feel there is a gap in the way the senior leadership thinks and the mid-level managers understand that or probably execute that. I think that is one of the biggest challenges, because the senior leaders may come up with a very big vision and everything, vision boards and vision, mission and everything, but are they translating the right way to the mid-level managers is one question that we need to ask. And then one of the most important, again, one of the most toughest parts is again the human thing, which is the change management. Like, how are we driving that digital adoption? I can get a new tool, but are people using that tool? I think these are some of the biggest challenges, like translating, I mean, the gap between the mid-level and the senior level, and then the change management part that comes with it.
Thank you, Santosh. And Jayant, I'd also like to, understand from you one perspective that in, growing pharma organizations where there is rapid expansion happening, how are you balancing this rapid expansion along with building a strong leadership and capability foundation for people, strong leadership and people capability foundation?
As I already shared with you. This is a challenge for us. Today, if I talk about MCure as a group, we have a challenge. We are not a single company. We are a conglomerate of 10 different companies, and each having had its own different value system. And when we are trying to build capability, we find that uh, unless you have agreement at the topmost level in terms of having a strategy in place, uh, simply building capabilities doesn't lead you anywhere because nobody knows where to go. So that's why this initiative of working on the values started, and we this has ensured one good thing is that once you know values are permanent and they are going to be there as long as the organization remains. And once we start building capabilities on those values, it brought no alignment to the complexities. And that is how we are able to manage so far. Though it is at an initial stage, but the it has at least given us a direction that we can maintain consistency in capability building despite the expansion, despite increasing the complexity. And despite having the other part about pharma is that almost all organizations are geographically highly distributed. We have operations in almost all states of India, and then there are operations in manufacturing and in sales and marketing. Plus, you have the support systems, so that makes it very complex when it comes to people looking after managing capabilities. It becomes a highly complex situation, probably one of the most complex you'd find in any industry, and that's the way we found an answer.
Sure, Jan. Thank you so much. And I'd very quickly like to move to audience questions. We have quite a few questions, and one question that I see, here is, and I'll, invite all of you to share your thoughts on this, is a question that for the non-technical employees, for non-technical leaders, what is the best starting point to build digital confidence without feeling overwhelmed?
Can I take that question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so if I were to look at it from the user perspective, if you're a user asking for digital capability as a non-technical person, I would say if I were in the place, what I would do is identify the application in my particular role, and it can be unique for each role because we understand unless I have a motivation, and adults would not want to move into learning in an area which does not apply to their day-to-day working. The motivation won't be there otherwise. So, first step becomes identifying the need which solves my current problem, and it can be technical, non-technical. The moment you do that, I think exploring the capability becomes far easier. And rest of the tools, there are so many tools available which guide you on how to, what is the best method of learning to what is the best content. There are so many available. So that is where I think one should start from.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from Ritesh and
Yeah.
Santosh?
Yeah, if I'd like to add to that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I would again take it back to the adult learning principles, wherein we start drawing parallels between the real world and the digital world. Now, take for instance this small box that we, 4, 5 of us are sitting today. Now, when you click on any Zoom meeting, right, you have this waiting room. Now, if we were to do this panel discussion physically, there would be a waiting room and there would be a vehicle to come there, and that vehicle was my meeting ID, meeting password, whatnot. So I think non-technical leaders, they should start thinking in these terms. What is my real world parallel to the digital world? I think that becomes so easier when you start doing that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Santosh. Ritesh, very briefly, if you would like to share some light, just have the last
Yeah.
leg.
One
Yes.
simple brief answer is start now, start immediately. Start learning, and as you start learning, you will get to know that what I need to learn. Because the journey has to start, and it has to start now and immediately. That's it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ritesh, Jayant, and Santosh, for joining us today and sharing such practical and grounded perspectives. I think today's discussion clearly highlights that building future ready capability is not about choosing between behavioral strength and digital readiness. It's about integrating both in ways that are human, that are relevant, and aligned to business realities. So, thanks to everyone who joined us. Thanks for your audience questions that we had today, and we hope this conversation helps you reflect on and shape your own capability priorities and capability building for 2026. Thanks everyone for joining in. Have a great evening ahead. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot,
you so
Ravi.
much.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
We look forward to welcoming you to our upcoming leadership programs, webinars, and executive learning initiatives. For more information, please connect with us at business@regenesys.net. Thank you for being part of today's session. We wish you continued success on your leadership journey.